real name system. After years-long serious consideration and consensus build-up, which took 5 years, to strike a balance between two universal values, freedom of expression on the internet on one side, and the human rights protection on the other. If you are interested in this IDV system, you may want to visit the ComSoc website, especially secured for this Cybersecurity Summit. There are no national barriers when it comes to the internet world. Therefore, in order to develop a fundamental measure which effectively handles cybersecurity, the global community has to join hands together and exert collaborated efforts. This is the spirit reflected in the Seoul Declaration adopted by 30 member countries and 9 non-member countries at the OECD ministerial meeting held in June 2008 in Seoul. I expect that world's combined efforts and collaboration will ensure free communications among the world's citizens, governments, and vibrant global online businesses, while minimizing the negative impacts of the cyberspace, thereby creating a harmonious global internet society that ensures a safe digital economy and embraces global culture. I hope that you all find great value out of this first Cybersecurity Summit. Also, I hope that you can generate fruitful results after 2 days, identifying the challenges of cyberspace and devising methods to confront the challenges effectively. Thank you very much.
I ask now Francis Finley to come up, who will be our chairman of the East-West Institute Board, who will be introducing our 2 keynote speakers. Francis.
Thank you, John. May I, on behalf of the Board of Directors of the East-West Institute, add all of our welcome to you to this very important meeting. Now, some 4 months ago, General James Jones committed to deliver the keynote speech at this first worldwide cybersecurity summit. Unfortunately, national security business makes it impossible for General Jones to be away from Washington today. However, General Jones has expressed his desire to send a message to all of you, and that message is as follows. The first Worldwide Security Summit is an event of significance. Your participants from 40 nations have an opportunity to help shape the way the international community begins to deal meaningfully with cooperation in cyberspace. I expect that the work all of you are now doing at the first Worldwide Security Summit, Cybersecurity Summit, will help ensure that effective international cooperation will become a reality. Well, we've had our instructions. One of President Obama's early acts upon coming to the White House was to conduct the 60-day cyber policy review and to appoint a national coordinator for cybersecurity. We're extremely fortunate today to have with us to deliver the first keynote address of the summit, Mr. Howard Schmidt, Special Assistant to the President of the United States and Cybersecurity Coordinator. Now, his full biography is in your material. He's had a long, distinguished career in defense and law enforcement spanning 40 years and worked previously in the White House for 2 years following 9/11. Howard.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and thank all of you for attending. John for putting this great event, and more importantly, those who've traveled for international to be a part of this proceedings, I think is very important and very telling. You know, when I was listening to the second panel last night, Bob Schaefer asked a question that I thought was very revealing, and it reminded me of something that we did about 10 years ago. And his question was, what's the discussion going to be in 10 years from now? And when you think about the historical events that took place when the President of the United States stood up and talked about cybersecurity being truly an international issue, truly an issue that we are oftentimes not prepared to deal with on a unilateral basis, and to think back, well, how did we get here? And more importantly, as Bob said last night, where we're going. So I reflected back to about 10 years ago. There was a group pulled together by Purdue University referred to as a Security Visionaries Roundtable. And as you well know, anytime you've been in this business for any length of time, you know, friends like Bruce and Esther and many of you that are in this room today, automatically they ask your opinion of what's going to be the future. And you take out your cyber globe and your ball where you can look into the future and determine what's really going to happen. But in this case, the folks were pretty right. It was a group that were pulled together with Diffie, the Diffie side of the Diffie-Hellgren PKI as we know it today. Becky Bass, the woman I refer to as the Grande Dame of intrusion detection, that literally wrote the first book on it from a technology perspective. Phil Venerables, Goldman Sachs, a whole group of people that have been doing this for a long time. And there were two questions on the table. The first one is, where were we 10 years ago? And this would have been in the year 1990. And where will we be in 10 years? And while I don't have time to do where we were now 20 years ago, I can speak to what was discussed 10 years ago, where we were going to be today. And you'll find it's particularly interesting. The first thing that was decided amongst this group of experts was there would be billions of devices on the internet and always on and always connected. You know, you can think about in the end of the year 2007, we crossed the threshold of having over 1 billion devices connected to the internet. Think of where we're going to be in the next 2 years, when it's estimated that that number is going to be doubling. Mobile devices everywhere, devices in our kitchens and our homes that are basically connected to the internet, that give us the ability to do things that we never thought of before. But also the key point, they need to be protected, they need to be secured. The second point that was brought up during this discussion, where we're going to be now, is virtual businesses. And the complexity of outsourcing relationships in the business world, what we see today is we no longer have one-on-one relationships. We no longer have one-to-many. We have many-to-many relationships, just like the networks that we've created today that we need to secure and protect privacies and civil liberties on. The other thing was brought up was something we called rules of the game. And this is really interesting when you start looking at the government's role in this whole world of cyberspace security. So there was a concern that there was going to be government regulations that were going to increase, that in some cases would do a better job about protecting privacy and civil liberties and making security increased. On the other side, it was concerned how it would be in a situation where governments now create such an environment that we no longer have the ability to innovate. The next item that we discussed was sort of what we referred to as the wild, wild west in regards to the old cowboy days in the United States. And clearly looking at the ability of international criminals to now exploit the very technology that we make our businesses successful on, that we provide our services to our citizens and the governments, for them to be able to come up and to exploit this thing, as well as, more importantly, exploit the lack of cooperation amongst governments. And ladies and gentlemen, that's one of the key reasons we're here today. The other thing that we discussed was the idea of privacy. There was a question last night that I think was very interesting. I believe it was asked of Dr. Bajaz on privacy as it relates to security. I think clearly one of the things we all recognize, anyone that's been in this business for a while, recognize that security and privacy are two sides of the same coin.